Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Aldas, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the future of the Mercedes driver lineup. Now, one of the biggest things that has happened in 2020 is there's been so much talk about contracts and driver lineups for the future. It started way early on at the start of the year. If you remember, Max Verstappen signed a 3-year extension contract with Red Bull, and then after that, it was Charles Leclerc to grab the headlines by signing a 5-year extension contract with Ferrari. So yeah, lots of big contracts at the start of the year, and then of course, since then we've had Sebastian Vettel being dropped by Ferrari, all of these questions about the Red Bull driver lineup of the future, and of course, even now, as we sit right now, we still don't have a Mercedes driver lineup for 2021, and that is still up in the air. And although we know who is going to be there, there is still a lot of speculation with regards to its longevity and where Mercedes are going to be in the next 3, 4, and 5 years to continue the Mercedes winning dynasty. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But don't forget, guys, if you do enjoy the content on my channel, then don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and then don't forget to check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. But guys, let's get into this one. Now, I think the easiest place to start this video is to look at the two Mercedes drivers right now, because 99.9% of the time, this is going to be Mercedes' lineup for next year, especially with some of the other things that have happened and some of the other signings and re-signings that have happened outside of Mercedes. So yeah, I do still think it will be Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas for at least another year in 2021. But as far as what happens after that with the brand new regs coming in 22, that is going to have a lot more questions around what the sustainability of that driver lineup is going to be. I have no doubt that Lewis Hamilton is still very much in his prime and still has a lot of good years to give, certainly looking at some of the longevity of the other drivers on the grid. However, when it comes to Valtteri Bottas, I think we all know that there is a lot more question marks over his future at Mercedes for the long term. Now, as far as Lewis Hamilton, there's always kind of crazy rumors. Is he going to retire? Is he going to go to Ferrari? We kind of heard it all in 2019. Now, of course, he's not going to go to Ferrari. That avenue has completely closed now with Carlos Sainz replacing Sebastian Vettel, and I don't expect him at all to retire at the end of this year. He is still very much in his prime. And one thing that I do find funny about the whole media narrative is that sometimes I hear, journalists say that Lewis Hamilton has maybe another 2 good years of fighting for a world title, maybe 2 or 3. And even if in 2 or 3 years' time he does drop a little bit, Lewis Hamilton's kind of B game is still going to be good enough to challenge for a world championship. So even in 4 or 5 years' time, if he is still in Formula 1, I can never count a driver like Lewis out in terms of fighting for a title. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be like a massive off the cliff like the media trying to make it out in 2 or 3 years, but certainly he is going to have to start tailing off at one point. I mean, he's got to, right? But yeah, as far as this contract, I expect him to sign a 3-year extension deal with Mercedes. I feel like that's quite a good medium. It's not a 1-year extension contract where it kind of leaves Mercedes in really kind of shaky waters in a year's time before the brand new rule changes. And it's also not too crazy with having maybe a 5-year extension contract where it really ties Mercedes down to the point where they pretty much have no choice other than to keep Lewis regardless of his performances. So yeah, I feel like 3 years is a good medium because, as I said, again, he's still in his prime. He's got so many more good years to give, and maybe he is going to be, still winning titles in 5 years' time. We don't know. So, just to play devil's advocate, if he does not re-sign, if it's going to be a massive shock announcement, Lewis Hamilton wins his 7th world title and leaves at the end of the year, who do I think could replace him? And to me, it only goes down to 2 people, and that's number 1, Sebastian Vettel. Now, Sebastian is not on Lewis Hamilton's level, but the fact that he is a free agent next year, the fact that he is a 4-time world champion, he's used to winning titles, or at least certainly 7 years ago, and also the fact that he's German, it certainly is quite a comfortable fit if Lewis Hamilton does decide a shock retirement. And the other driver who I think could step into that team is Max Verstappen. And now, in that case, it would be a much messier deal. Mercedes and Toto Wolff would have to somehow break the Red Bull contract that Max has signed. But if Lewis Hamilton retires and there is a seat at Mercedes, I could definitely see Max Verstappen at least considering it, at least trying to break his contract and maybe get into that Merc for the future. But again, that would be a messy deal, although to swap Lewis Hamilton for Max Verstappen, I don't think that's too bad. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But again, I do think that the most likely option, obviously, is for Lewis Hamilton to stay at Mercedes until the end of 2023 with a 3-year extension contract. So certainly on that side of the garage, it's safe. You know, Lewis Hamilton, 6-time world champion, maybe 7, maybe 8 in the future. Definitely one of the top 3 drivers of all time. In my opinion, the greatest. I've said that on many occasions, but nevertheless, it's a safe seat for Mercedes to have. However, on the Valtteri Bottas side of the garage, yeah, there's a lot more uncertainty. Now, Bottas is one of those drivers that is just so hard to rate because there's no doubt that he is a great driver. There's no doubt about it. He has proved that in his early career, as in like before Formula One. He proved it when he came into Williams, and then once again I think he proved it when he came into Mercedes. Now I think, like I said, he's a great driver, but he's not an exceptional driver. Don't get me wrong, on certain races and in certain Grand Prix he can match Lewis Hamilton, maybe even do better, but over the course of the season he doesn't have anywhere near the consistency, anywhere near the same speed throughout the entire year to actually challenge Lewis for a title. And yeah, Bottas has got to go to another level, and perhaps this is something I'm going to talk about in a later video, but I do think that we are coming to an end of Valtteri Bottas at Mercedes. I think he's going to get, once again, another 1-year deal for 2021, and then I do see a certain George Russell being a real option for the brand new rule changes. But yeah, Bottas living off these 1-year deals and kind of feeding off them and having a good start to the year, getting the deal, and just having a very poor end to the year, it's kind of been the trend for Valtteri Bottas. Now again, in 2019 he did a much better job. He was much stronger towards the end of the year, but he was still nowhere near the caliber of Lewis Hamilton, and that is why I think this is almost an if it ain't broke don't fix it kind of lineup for Mercedes. There's no doubt that there are better options than Valtteri Bottas, but when you have this comfortable environment of Lewis Hamilton winning these titles and Valtteri Bottas being a very competitive driver, now again, I don't think Valtteri Bottas is a scrub. I don't think he's a mug. He's a really good driver, there's no doubt about it, but he's not exceptional. But this driver lineup has just worked and dominated Formula One for the past 3 seasons, will dominate Formula One again probably for the next 2 years. So again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, for the long term, Mercedes do need to consider if Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton are going to last, and especially when they have talents like Esteban Ocon and George Russell waiting in the wings. Now, to clarify my stance on Valtteri Bottas, because I don't want to seem like I'm being too harsh on him, because certainly I don't think he's done anything wrong per se to be dropped by Mercedes or that he doesn't deserve to be at the team, but I also don't think that he's done anything exceptional that actually says, you know, he's got to be there for the next few years. So yeah, it's a really kind of weird middle ground. I honestly just think that it is just a marriage of convenience in terms of the driver lineup and the Mercedes team. It's just a tried and tested formula. It's battle hardened, where you have Lewis Hamilton winning all these titles, and then you have Valtteri Bottas getting the odd win there and there. And Valtteri also pushes Lewis to the absolute max, because Lewis knows that he can't get too comfortable. Even though he is very quick and he's in a great car, there's no doubt about it, he can't afford to make mistakes, because Valtteri, he always knows, is right behind him and will always pick up the pieces when they are dropped. However, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, Lewis Hamilton is obviously in a different league when compared to Valtteri Bottas. Now, the last thing I will say about this driver lineup is that I've said this time and time again, that this driver lineup of Bottas and Hamilton, it is nothing like the driver lineup of Barrichello and Schumacher. It's nothing like that, because Valtteri Bottas, at the start of every single year, he has equal opportunity to win the title, and the team don't design the car around Lewis Hamilton. It's designed by committee. Even if they get a 1-2, and the team have said this, even if they dominate a race, get a 1-2, they still sit down at the end of the day and talk about where can the car be improved, where can the car get even better, despite winning the race 1-2. And it's not designed around Lewis Hamilton or even around like Max Verstappen, the way the Red Bull is, and even the way, of course, the Ferrari was around Michael Schumacher. So, and the only time they have team orders is when Valtteri Bottas is pretty much mathematically out of the title. And it's not like it was at Ferrari when there was team orders on Barrichello, like even 6 or 7 races into the season, when he was obviously still in the title hunt. So I think it's why the team dynamic and why the team environment is just so comfortable. There's no mind games being played, really. There's no kind of advantages to one driver or the other. It really does come down to who just does the best job on the track. So having said all of those things, having raved about how good the Mercedes driver lineup is and how it just works, I'm about to flip the script and completely basically just contradict myself in saying that, you know, as good as their driver lineup is now, I don't think it's going to be enough for them to continue to be winning championships in the future, and I don't think it's going to be enough for them to continue the Mercedes Formula One dynasty in the future as well, because this is a dynasty in every sense of the word. What Mercedes have created is a totally bulletproof machine in terms of winning titles, creating a good car, never taking anything for granted, and of course their 2 drivers have been delivering every single year. However, for the future, Mercedes very soon are going to need to consider their driver lineup because, in a sense, they are getting a little bit left behind with the transition from the old generation to the new generation of drivers. When you look at teams like Ferrari, they have fully embraced the younger generation, and next year, of course, they're going to have their youngest ever driver lineup in the history of Ferrari in Formula 1. And even at Red Bull, you have Max Verstappen and Alexander Albon. Whether he'll stay at the team or not is a discussion for another video, but nevertheless, again, both drivers in their early 20s. And then when you look at the Mercedes driver lineup, you have Valtteri Bottas, someone who's 30 years old, and you have Lewis Hamilton, someone who's 35. And although they have this amazing cushion of having a great team and also a really fast car every single year, they will need to start thinking about the future and thinking about their driver lineup in terms of getting a younger guy in there who can perhaps take over the reign from someone like Lewis Hamilton and continue winning championships. And as I said, continue the Mercedes winning dynasty. Now, in terms of the young drivers that Mercedes have at their disposal, I mean, obviously the two big names are George Russell and Esteban Ocon. Now, as far as Esteban Ocon, my position on him has been crystal clear. I think he is a great driver, there's no doubt about it, but if Mercedes truly thought that he is a world championship caliber of driver, he would have been in that car this year by signing a deal last year, but instead, they allowed him to go to Renault, and I think that was the right thing to do to allow him to develop a little bit more, kind of build more experience as well before they give him that jump up to the main team. However, George Russell is a guy that I have spoken on many occasions. In my opinion, he is next level. He is going to be championship quality. He is going to be winning multiple titles. In my opinion, he is a real superstar. He's absolutely box office. And yes, I know that at the moment the results don't look like it. Of course, he's driving at the back of the grid in the Williams, and it's really strange how the Williams has, certainly this year, has been amazing in qualifying. And whilst we've seen some exceptional performances by him in qualifying in P12, I think multiple times already this year in a Williams, on a Sunday he has made a few mistakes, and also the Williams just seems to fall like a stone in race pace. So again, it's kind of really hard to gauge where he is compared to the rest of the field, but I've said multiple times that the guy is a future superstar, and my position on him is going to remain crystal clear as far as him being a future world champion. Now, the final thing I do just quickly want to say is that I do also think that perhaps Mercedes have almost played it a little bit too safe in 2021 with just retaining their driver lineup, or of course it's not official, but with George Russell and Nicholas Latifi announced at Williams for next year, obviously George Russell is not going to be in that Merc for next year, and I do think that perhaps Mercedes have missed a little bit of a trick, because even if George Russell goes into that team in 2022 and kind of replaces Valtteri Bottas, and then we start to see the little shift and, you know, the little change between Lewis Hamilton and George Russell kind of almost taking over Lewis Hamilton's throne, it will be much harder for George to step into that team in 2022 with not only a brand new team, a brand new car, but also a brand new set of regulations. And I think that could be quite tricky, because I think it would have been a lot more confidence building for him to be taken up by the team in 2021, get used to being in a championship winning team, get used to being in a championship winning car, or certainly between the regs that he's used to right now, and then he would have been so much more comfortable going into the brand new regulations in 2022. So yeah, that's the only part where I feel like Mercedes still are a little bit of a step back in terms of having the confidence to trust it in their talent, having the confidence to trust it in their young guys like Ferrari have done and like Red Bull have done in the past, and sign George Russell up alongside Lewis Hamilton for 2021 so he can learn from the 6th or 7th time world champion by then and really kind of get really well integrated into the team and ready for the brand new rule changes, and to continue the domination of Mercedes in Formula 1 to the dismay of many fans, no doubt. But that is just how strong those drivers are. That is just how strong that team is. And again, I'll throw it to you guys. Let me know in the comments below, who do you think is the driver pairing that is going to continue the Mercedes dynasty in the future, in your opinion? Anyway, guys, there you go. I hope you did enjoy this video, and if you did, don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and don't forget to check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.